Shemai everyone, welcome back to the Athlete Climate Academy. Today's guest is Leanna Carriere, who is a former pole vaulter and heptathlete, Canada's first female decathlete, mother, and now endurance racer. Leanna, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I always say I've been an athlete my entire life. I started off as a gymnast and played some tennis and got into track and field. And track and field is where I really found my passion for all sports. I did heptathlon and I pole vaulted internationally for Canada. And then after a shoulder injury, I decided to try to get really fit and train all the other events. So then when I came back to pole vault, it went really well. And then I decided to try to do a decathlon. So I was Canada's first female decathlete. So that was pretty exciting for me, a great accomplishment. I won a Woman of Vision award for that, and kind of like that I pioneered that, at least within Canada. And then in 2016, I was fourth at the Olympic trials. Top 3 women went, so it was kind of upsetting for sure, but it was later on in my career. So I decided to have my daughter, co-founded a chocolate company with my sister, and turned to the amazing world of endurance sports because I realized that I could run with a stroller and keep my fitness going. I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years now, so I wanted to make sure I kept my athletics going, and that's basically my journey on the athletic side. Along route, I guess I started to discovering that the places that I like to play outside, swimming in the rivers, running the trails, cycling the mountains, I started to really notice the impact, the environments around me changing a lot, definitely in the last 6 years. And one of the most heartbreaking things was taking my daughter to the coast, and I took her where I grew up as a kid, and we were looking for starfish, and I didn't find one starfish. And it was just so upsetting that I couldn't show her a starfish in the wild. So I started kind of pioneering a new idea with my partner, and we came up with an idea called Wings of Survival, where we'll be cycling and pack rafting the Pacific Highway, which is the Pacific Flyway, sorry, the Pan American Highway, which is the Pacific Flyway. So following migratory birds, as they're the best indicators for the health of the environment. So it's kind of a quick summary, I guess.
So in summary, you found a way to make a day longer than 24 hours.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know how. I don't have days. I tell people they just kind of roll
into one. But
Yeah.
that's we talk about track and field a lot. A lot of our listeners are mountain athletes. I'm a mountaineer. I spend a lot of my time in the quote unquote natural world. But it's interesting in track and field because running is running, whether it's in the mountains or it's on track. There's different principles involved. There's different training involved. And we're starting to see a lot of mountain athletes now seeing the differences that are happening. But I suppose when you're doing track and field, you might not see those same changes. How the world, have you seen the world of track and field change much over the last 20 years?
Or within just in the environment, like people being more just, I have to say I haven't seen as big of a change as I'd like to see. I think a lot of it is just knowledge and awareness. When I did track, I didn't think much because my playground or the areas I spent 20 hours a week was just in this little 400-meter rubber circle with a fiberglass pole. So for me, it's so small in a way. And then when you go travel, I go to Europe and I go compete, and same thing. I'm just dropped off in this little 400-meter circle. It has all the same stuff as it does in Edmonton. So it's you're looking very, very small, I guess. You're just looking what's there. Sure, there's recycle bins and we're outside. We're not using maybe as much energy, but I think there's just, I feel the effects of the climate you really see when you start to go out. I remember when I was in Lebanon competing, the track facility was beautiful, but then you go maybe 5K out of it, and all of a sudden it's just like you're in this really destructed area, and so you're getting these. So it's easy to make maybe that 400-meter area look really awesome and great, but then the chaos is happening 5K away, and that's the real problem. I mean, races and stuff being canceled because of weather changes, things that we don't have control over, for sure is frustrating as an athlete. And back then, when I was a track and field athlete, I didn't really put a correlation between the two. I was just focused on track and personal training. I really, climate change at that point in my life was just something that the scientists were dealing with. And I feel like nowadays we're not seeing, we're starting to see more athletes stand up for the climate, because I think we are starting to, I go for a warm up run. I'd be in California at this beautiful track. I go for a warm up run and I'm just like, I'm looking around. I'm like, this isn't, what is happening? Like, there's a heaviness in the air. It's, nothing looks healthy. And for me, I always like to describe it as a healthy, like, unhealthy human walking into my PT. Like, just, I have this vision of my head of this unhealthy earth walking into my consultation room, and I'm like, okay, your blood pressure is high, you look like you're smoking a lot, like you're deteriorating faster, like how can we stop this? And little patches aren't going to work. So yeah, unfortunately, I feel like I haven't seen enough of a change in that community just yet.
But it's same with all sports, that
Yeah.
we see sports people, and we've seen it through the civil rights movement and climate change and everything, that it's a great arena to speak out, and speak out for whether it's politics or science or civil changes, societal changes. It's just, I really enjoy seeing those sports people at places like the Olympics have things to say. I know there's always people who say, just shut up and dribble. But always the following, as one of the reasons we started Athlete Climate Academy, was the following that sports people have can make a really massive difference, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing I didn't realize until I met my partner Tim, and he has his PhD in ecology, and for him, climate change is every day, and it's depressing, and he's looking at these stats. And for me, I'm very motivated and I'm excited and I want to see change and I want to make change. And when I first brought up this idea of cycling the highway, originally I just wanted to do a record attempt, and he was like, "We need to think bigger. What can we do that's more impactful?" And he gets frustrated. He loves sports, and it's the same thing. He sees these sports people that could have a bigger say, a voice around what we can do. And sometimes it's, I feel for myself being an athlete and then learning about the climate, it's just the knowledge around it. I didn't realize becoming more vegan or vegetarian, I didn't realize the impact of what I eat. And that's such a, for me, in the economy I live in, it's an easy choice. I can choose to be vegetarian, and that makes a huge impact, on my footprint. So there's, I think there's just a big knowledge that's just not quite there. And the athletes, a lot of athletes, they just get paid to, go out. That's their job. Go out, represent the company, go from point A to point B, whatever that looks like. But there's just, I think there needs to be more knowledge, and they have to feel empowered to speak up and say something. So they have to understand that, we all know climate change is there. Like I said, so this big, dark, looming cloud over us, but some of us have voices, but we need more people to have voices and more people to take action. Even if it's, becoming more plant-based, that's still at least something. If everyone went plant-based, that'd be great. But that's not what's going to happen in the next 2 years to really stop that tipping point. So I think it's just knowledge and empowerment.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's one thing we always try and do on Athlete Climate Academy, is give that knowledge where they can, and then we work with bunches of people who then take that into activism, whichever way that you prefer to be active, whether that's talking to people whilst out on a run, whether that's getting in touch with your local politicians. The knowledge comes first, and then the action should definitely come after. It doesn't matter when you get to that or how you get to that, but that's the journey we're all on. So you did track and field, successful career, and then decided to have a completely new one and another one in endurance sports. What was that change like for you?
Well, it was hard. I love the thrill. I love the thrill of pole vaulting. I'm a bit of a thrill seeker. I like that adrenaline. So I found as soon as I got a road bike, I could go really fast. So that that fed that. Um, I just wanted to stay active, and having a daughter that was, yeah, having a newborn, you just can't, as a speed power athlete, unless you have extra support. It's just really hard to maintain that. Your nervous system's tired and fatigued all the time, so you can't get the quality of workouts in. So I thought, well, I can at least run with the stroller. I can hop on the bike trainer when she slept, can get someone to watch her for an hour while I swam. So I always liked doing multi events because I did all the track and field events. So doing 3 events, and then it's also a sport that has you can do it for a very long time. So it keeps me active. It's where I get a lot of, I guess, like for my mind can just settle. I can be out there for hours. I don't even notice. I'll be on my bike in the mountains for 8 hours. It's not even, it's just fun. And it's opened up a different world. Plus being able to just go for a run with my sister or a group of people who are like, hey, let's go for a 100K ride. And to be able to do that it's a great feeling. Not a lot of people can pole vault. You can't go pole vaulting on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I love most, and a lot of my friends love most about being active and doing endurance style things is that you just get to see so much of the world that it takes you to some really lovely places, and you get to see things that people like being on tops of mountains at sunrise or through the night or whatever. It takes you to places that you wouldn't get to see unless you could do those kind of things. So what are some of your favorite things that you've done endurance wise, and things that you've got coming up?
Sure. Yeah. Last year was a pretty epic year. I ran the Mount Everest Marathon. So we hiked into we hiked into the base camp, and then you run from base camp down to Nemche. I like to say it's down, but it still was, I think, over 2,000 meters of elevation, plus altitude. So it was about, we hiked in, I think it was about 10 days hike in, which was beautiful. Such a lovely area. And then spent 2 days, 2 nights at base camp, and then we raced. And I got altitude sickness. It was terrible. We did a lot of practice runs. I mean, it's just that the area of the world is so beautiful. But again, it's so crazy because you go from something like Kathmandu that's just wild, busy. I mean, there's garbage everywhere. And you're just like, there's this, it was really hard. It was hard for me to be in that city in some ways until I got into the mountains. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, like I love this area. They also offered on that race specifically that you could pick up garbage along the run. So you could, yeah, so they had a garbage bag you could take with you on your race down, and you can collect garbage. And I was actually pretty surprised. This was after climbing season. There wasn't as much garbage up at base camp, and there wasn't as much garbage on the trails as kind of, I think, social media led on. Everyone really takes care of the mountain. I felt that way at least. And then I did Ironman Canada in Penticton, which was just kind of, I guess, that's kind of, the Ironman's kind of the track world. It's kind of the pure, you're racing on road, you're running on road, you're swimming in a lake, less kind of in the environment, well, like submerged in the in the environments where there's less around. So lots of people. That was a fun race. I had Ironman follow me and do a documentary. And then I finished my year up in Patagonia, which was unreal. So I did a extreme triathlon there. It was a full Ironman distance, 200 people, completely self-supported. So my partner and I raced side by side, which was different because I don't think a lot of couples do that. But it was a bit of a trial to see how this expedition was going to go. We had our filmmaker with us. So it was kind of just a trial, make sure everyone got along, we could race and work well together. And Patagonia is absolutely beautiful. They have tons of national parks out there, which was just amazing to hike and go see because it's a completely different feel than, say, Nepal was. So I kind of got a flip of everything. And then this year I'll be racing some Ironman events. Hopefully head to Alaska for a training trip. Yeah, and then just prep for this huge expedition we're doing that'll leave in about a year.
And in between all that, you also started a chocolate company.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so we started, one of the reasons why I went to race the Mount Everest Marathon was my sister at the time was living in the UK. She was working for Cadbury. She's a food scientist. She was creating chocolates. I had this
The best
idea.
chocolate in the world from someone who lives in the UK. Cadbury's are great.
Yes, your chocolates are coming. So she worked for them for over 8 years, and her partner at the time was from the UK, and her and I talked, and I said, it's so frustrating going into these sports stores because chocolate's so good, it's such a good fuel source. I said, why isn't there a piece of chocolate with a hiker or runner on it? Can't we use this, fuel this? And my sister's like, absolutely, we can do this. So we kind of had this idea. They were going to Mount Everest. I guess it's almost been 3 years ago, right before COVID. And he was going to summit, and it's kind of sad story. So he was at the summit, and she had gotten a call, or no, she had looked at her phone, and she woke up in the middle of the night and said, it's 7 Summit Snacks. She just got this idea that that was the name of the chocolate company. Wrote it down, looked at her phone, and realized, got a message that he had passed away. So he'd made the summit, and then he had collapsed about 200 meters down. And so
Wow.
part of me going back and running the Mount Everest Marathon was to make sure his memorial was set up and to say goodbye on kind of behalf of the family and my sister. So my sister, we went to the UK. I have another sister. We went to the UK, grabbed my sister, packed her up, brought her home. She's like, let's start this chocolate company. So we did.
That's amazing. And that's a crazy story behind it, and something that will mean something to all of you going forward, right?
Yeah, it does. And so for us, the chocolate line, so we have 7 different flavors. So they're named after each of the 7 tallest peaks. So then we have 7 different formats and then 7 different flavors. So eventually, right now, we got 3 flavors out. We got 2 formats. So we have the endurance bar, which is sleek and it fits in your bike bag or in your running pocket. And you can tear, it has the same energy as a carbohydrate gel. So chocolate's just a long energy. So instead of getting a gut spike, you kind of have energy over a long period of time, which is great. So you don't have to take in all these extra gels. Yeah.
And what's the thoughts behind? Because I think micro everything is the way forward. Micro energy, uh, micro manufacture, I suppose. Like, I suppose at the moment you are fairly small, growing day by day, I imagine. How do you wrap in sustainability into Seven Summits?
So every year we try to do something a little bit more. Robin was very big on, well, he was vegan, and then he was big on deforestation. So he really wanted to give back, and we always had this idea of planting trees everywhere, kind of on behalf of him. Anyhow, so right now we have our chocolates ethically sourced, which was really important, and we're 1% for the 1% for the 1% for the planet. So every year we kind of try to make a change. We did have and this is where I get really frustrated. We want to do more, get chocolate that's say more agroforestry based. So it's not these big farmlands that are cutting down. Agroforestry is kind of new, and it's kind of having multiple plants that support wildlife, and the beans are actually better. But to invest in that is just a huge cost to the company, especially a small company. And so I looked into it, and the return was like over 9 years if we put in 60 grand. And I'm just like, this is so hard. It is so hard to get there. And then we had another company approach us. They said, we want to do biodegradable packaging, which has been on from day one, we've wanted to do this. And they're like, we want you guys to be the first prototypes, and we'll give you a discount. But the discount is still 30%, no, 40% more than our regular packaging. So we're just like, so we're a small company. We're 3 years. We're slowly making it. So every year we kind of make a small change to get to where we want to go. We want to have, if everything was agroforest based and if everything was biodegradable packaging, we would absolutely love that. Our packaging is 100% recyclable, which is great. But it's hard for small companies right now, especially in Canada, to have, you almost need a side investor that doesn't care about their money back. They just want to give you the money to be, the first to create this kind of product. So each year this year we're talking about labels, like each of those little circles on the packaging, people I don't think realize like that costs money. To have it labeled vegan costs $600 a year to have that little circle on our packaging. So now our chocolate already costs us a lot of money to make. Like, we don't have huge margin. We're trying to break it down, but so it's one of these things, right? The climate, everyone wants it now and to happen now, but it's just we're not there as a economy right now. Or there's not rules in place politically to instill these things. It's out there, the knowledge again. it's out there. If all the packaging was biodegradable, that would be great, but not everyone can afford that.
I think that that's it. You know, we keep coming back this time and again with the change that we need to make and the change that we want to make in the time scale we need and want. It's just difficult, right? To with all the best intention in the world, with all the knowledge in the world, you just fight in an uphill battle against the economy, against interests that want to keep things the way that they were, the status quo, because it's good for them. We're always just fighting that uphill battle. So next up for you is Wings of Survival. Tell us a little bit about this absolutely huge project that you've undertaken on top of everything else.
Yeah, so just what like we talked about, athletes have a voice, and we really want to bring sports and science together. So that's what's so exciting when I came across you guys' page, is that you guys are doing that. Um, so the biggest thing is we want to inspire people and provide knowledge, and we want to hit different demographics. Right now, I feel like the scientists work in their own area, the athletes work in their own area, and there's not a good bridge right now. So it's understanding. So what we're doing is we're going to start off in Alaska. We're going to cycle the Pan American Highway, following a group of migratory birds, and all the way down to the southernmost tip of South America. So it's about 30,000 kilometers. And along the way, hopefully we'll be partnered with BirdLife and create stewardship programs in some key locations. So those stewards will now hopefully be empowered, and some money raised will go to each of those stewardships so that they can work with their communities to build a healthy community and support the environments around them. Because we'll be hitting 17 different countries as well. So each area, each ecosystem might need something slightly different. We can't just tell everyone to go vegan. When you travel, you can't eat vegan everywhere. And I'm fortunate, it's a choice, but it's not practical for everyone. So it's so important, I think, along the way, what we want to see is these programs kind of established, and these people, these stewards, empowered to then be the voice of their community and give them, the money and the assistance they need to protect that area. So that's kind of the biggest reason why we're doing it. We chose birds because birds are the best indicator of the health of the environment. Birds have no borders. They bring community together. You see birds everywhere. So it's so neat. Bird migration is just fascinating. And I think if people start to understand, what the birds are going through, they'll kind of see us we're not flying, but they'll see us stimulate. Like we're going to come across the same sort of things as birds do. And the birds do it twice a year. And yeah, so I think that's just that is the one thing we're trying to get out, is just kind of inspire our own conservation heroes along the way through an athletic adventure.
It's really interesting because we called ourselves Athlete Climate Academy because we thought climate is a good enough catch-all for everyone, but we want to do sustainability, we want to do a little bit of everything, including biodiversity. And I think that we hear about the COP26, COP27, the climate change conference of parties, but less so about the biodiversity ones, which we just had COP15, actually in Montreal, wasn't it? Out in Canada, and
Yeah.
looking at biodiversity loss, like how do we? It's the thing that's sneaking up behind us. We've got climate just there on the forefront, and it is the biggest thing that we need to get a handle on. But biodiversity loss over the past couple of hundred years since the Industrial Revolution has been crazy. We're losing species on a rate that's 1,000 times larger than they would naturally. So it's great to see you guys raising awareness about not just climate. I'm sure you'll talk about that on along the way, but biodiversity as well, especially through places that are the most biodiverse locations in the world, like Central America.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of if those areas aren't healthy, it directly affects the climate. Again, if you look at the earth is a human, as I like to say, um, you know, if our arteries are slowly clogging up, we're on the verge of having a heart attack, or we're going to have a stroke, or there's something bigger coming. So we need to clear those areas. Those areas needs to be clean. Those areas, I'm talking the human body, but those ecosystems have to be healthy, and there's ways of making them sustainable so that people are still, making money, having good lives. There's ways of doing it. We all know this. It's just we have to start to change. We have to have that mind shift. And I'm hoping people can start to see this through what we're doing and when we're talking. We really have to come together as a community. And that's the hardest thing. It can't just be me on a bike or Tim on a bike doing this. It's not impactful enough. It's joining forces with you guys. It's joining forces with some of these other great leaders that are doing, kind of wrapping the sports and science together, working with universities and really working with the communities. That's the biggest population, or some of these, and then some of them are low income and they just don't know any better. They don't know how. So you have to really show people how. You have to make them understand, make them feel why is taking care of this part of the environment so important. It's because it's your livelihood. Like, sometimes I think people don't realize it's our future, and if we don't take care of it, like my daughter, like, there's wildfires already here in Edmonton. And my daughter's afraid that the fires are going to come get her. I don't want her living like that. So it's to better our future. Or else we're
It
not going to
is,
have a
and
future. There's no races, there's nothing.
exactly, and I think it's a bit of a weird one, because climate change is super unequal when it comes to who we will affect most, who actually put most of the carbon into the atmosphere. That was unequal. Who's affected most down the line? That's unequal. And it is a bit of a privilege to, like you're saying with Seven Summits, it's a privilege to be biodegradable, and it's a privilege to be vegan, and it's a privilege to be, because you have to pay that extra. There's always extra bits that come with, oh, I'm gonna try and do this sustainably, or I'm gonna try, if I want to catch the train down to the Alps, that means I need maybe 2 days instead of just 1 day, and it's an extra thing that comes across. So that all that privilege gives us is extra ways to tackle it. And it's a difficult conundrum to get around. Like, how do we give knowledge and action to everyone across the world equally, but make sure that action is done by the people who, I always say that the people who have the most should definitely do the most. The action that we can take. It's good that you guys are giving that knowledge and then providing the ways to give action down the line. And if people want to follow that trip, it goes off next year, right?
Yeah.
With all fingers crossed, because it's a big trip. Where can people follow you on that?
Yeah, so there's an overarching project called Flyway Heroes. So eventually we'd be doing all 8 flyways. So that would hit every country in the world. So you can follow us at Flyway Heroes on Instagram, or the website Flyway Heroes. Also at Leanna Carriere is my own Instagram. We'll be launching our website really soon. We have a meeting today. So that's just wingsofsurvival.com. So all of that is about to be launched. We'll have our mini doc and our teaser on that as well, so you can watch to kind of see what the project's about.
And it's given me real, like, I'm hoping now, going forward, we can get more people on this podcast thinking about biodiversity and thinking about how we can protect little areas, because what we're talking about with birds, we're seeing shifts and changes in migratory patterns. We're seeing shifts and changes in just little ecosystems, wetland environments, and the likes. And climate change is barreling down on us, but so is the biodiversity crisis, equally at the same time. And it gives me heart palpitations every day.
I don't, the people who work in the science world, I just I really sympathize with that, because the facts are in your face every day. I read them and I'm like, I get frustrated because I'm just like, this needs to change now. People are doing stuff. We originally wanted to do this project in Leave Now, but because we want to make a bigger impact, we took an extra year to plan and get the documentary to do the proper filming. But it just it all needs to start happening now, and it has to take such a huge part of the population to get on board with it. So we Absolutely. Need to come together.
And you can only do that with knowledge. So
yeah, exactly.
We thank you very much.
Yeah.
Leanna, thanks so much for being part of the podcast. It was a really exciting conversation. Try and get some sleep at some point. And looking forward to seeing what Wings of Survival does next year.
Okay, thanks so much for having me.